She was just 6 years old, with tiny trembling hands clutching the hem of her worn-out dress, her big brown eyes shimmering with hope and desperation. The busy diner buzzed with laughter, clinking plates, and chatter, but her soft, trembling words cut through the noise like a dagger. "Can you be my mommy?" For a moment, the world stopped. Every sound faded. Every heart skipped a beat. The young waitress froze, staring down at the child whose voice carried both innocence and unbearable loneliness. And across the table, the man in the sharp black suit, the powerful CEO who could silence boardrooms and command empires, sat utterly paralyzed, his fork dangling midair, his soul pierced by words he never imagined hearing in public. Before we go further, if you believe in the power of kindness, in second chances, and in love that heals even the deepest wounds, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to StoryNest. These stories are made to remind us that behind every face is a story waiting to be heard. The man's name was Adrian Knight. To the world, he was a cold, unreachable figure, the youngest CEO in the city, a ruthless strategist, a man with no time for emotions. But inside, Adrian carried a secret pain. His wife, the love of his life, had passed away in childbirth, leaving him with their newborn daughter, Emily. For 6 years, he had raised Emily with the help of nannies and caretakers, but no one had ever filled that void. No one could be mother. He gave her everything money could buy, lavish toys, the best schools, a mansion filled with shining walls. But love, warmth, the gentle presence of a mother, these were treasures he could not purchase, nor could he give. And Emily felt that emptiness. At 6, she was old enough to notice the other kids with their mothers. At school events, she watched little girls hold their mommy's hands. At birthday parties, she heard them giggle as their mothers braided their hair. And every night, she whispered into her pillow, asking God if one day he could send her a mommy too. That night at the diner had not been planned. Adrian rarely stepped into such places, preferring 5-star restaurants and private chefs. But Emily had begged to go somewhere normal. She wanted to eat pancakes with whipped cream, just like her classmates. And so, despite his pride, Adrian agreed. That was how they met her. Her name was Lily. She was not extraordinary at first glance, just a simple waitress in her 20s, working double shifts to support her college dreams. But she had something rare, something priceless, gentleness. She noticed Emily before she noticed Adrian. She crouched down, smiled softly, and spoke to her as though she were the most important person in the world. She asked about her favorite toppings, listened carefully, and when Emily giggled, Lily giggled too. For Emily, it was love at first sight, not the kind of love we read in fairy tales, but the desperate longing of a child's heart who saw in this stranger the warmth she craved most. Adrian had watched the interaction with curiosity, then discomfort. He was not used to someone seeing his daughter before seeing his wealth. And then it happened. As Lily placed the pancakes before them, Emily reached out, her eyes brimming with tears, and whispered those life-altering words, "Can you be my mommy?" Adrian froze. His throat tightened. The CEO who negotiated billion-dollar deals could not find a single word. His carefully built walls of power and pride crumbled before his daughter's raw plea. Lily's hand trembled as she clutched the tray, her eyes darting between the fragile child and the men who looked like he'd been struck by lightning. The entire diner seemed to pause, waiting. From that moment, life began to shift. Adrian could have brushed it off, paid the bill, and never returned. But something about Emily's request haunted him. For nights, he replayed the scene in his mind, hearing her trembling voice over and over. He realized money, power, and control meant nothing if his little girl's heart was aching. And secretly, a part of him, buried under years of grief, longed for someone like Lily too. Days turned into weeks, and Adrian found himself returning to that diner under flimsy excuses. Emily insisted, of course, but he no longer resisted. Each visit, Lily greeted them with the same warmth. She wasn't intimidated by Adrian's cold stares, nor was she dazzled by his wealth. Instead, she treated him like a man, sometimes sternly, sometimes playfully, and treated Emily like the treasure she was. Lily became a quiet light in their lives. She told Emily bedtime stories while Adrian listened at the door, unseen. She brought laughter into their home when she visited on weekends. Slowly, Adrian felt his ice begin to melt. He found himself opening up, sharing pieces of his heart he had locked away since his wife's death. Lily wasn't trying to replace anyone, she was simply being there. But love stories are never simple. Adrian's pride, his fear of vulnerability, and his reputation as a CEO became obstacles. His board members whispered against him, mocking his growing attachment to a mere waitress. Friends from his wealthy circle sneered. And Adrian wrestled with a terrifying question: was he ready to risk his carefully built empire for the possibility of love again? Meanwhile, Lily faced her own battles. She feared stepping into the shoes of a woman she could never replace. She worried about being judged, about being unworthy of Emily's innocent trust. But every time Emily called her name, every time those little hands reached for hers, Lily knew she couldn't walk away. The climax came one rainy evening. Adrian had worked late, leaving Emily with a caretaker. But when the storm knocked out the power, Emily grew terrified. She clutched her stuffed bear and whispered for Lily. Not for her dad. Not for anyone else. For Lily. And somehow, Lily arrived, drenched, breathless, but there. She wrapped Emily in her arms, held her close, and whispered comfort until the storm passed. When Adrian returned home to find them asleep together on the couch, something inside him broke wide open. He realized it wasn't about risks or reputation. It was about love. Real love, the kind that heals wounds money never can. From that night on, things changed. Adrian stopped hiding. He stopped fighting what was so clearly meant to be. Slowly but surely, he allowed Lily into his world, not as a waitress, not as a fleeting visitor, but as a partner, as someone who could help him rebuild the home his daughter deserved. Months later, in that same diner where it all began, Adrian took Lily's hand in front of Emily and whispered the words that would complete the circle: "Can you be my wife? Can you be her mommy?" Tears flowed freely that night. And for Emily, who had prayed into her pillow for so long, it was as though heaven itself had answered. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power of second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to StoryNest. These stories live because of you, and together, we can keep spreading love and hope. Before we end, tell us in the comments, do you believe destiny brings the right people into our lives when we least expect it?